do have some questions that Candace and I have for you, and we're prepared to just show our screen and have you walk through it with us.
Sure, absolutely. Whatever you want to do.
And if you guys have questions, go ahead and just put it through the chat or unmute your line. I think we have about 27 people on the call, Roxanne. So, all right. Candace, why don't you start us off with the first one?
Okay, so, let me share my screen here. Bear with me, guys. Hopefully I'm not being too technically challenged here. Okay, so I guess my first one is there any tips when trying to search for an address? Oh, sorry. Are you guys seeing my matrix?
Nope, that's
No.
just around.
Sorry.
Other screen.
New share. That might help. Here we go.
Hey, there it is.
Okay, so a lot of times I'll go in just here in the search line and search for an address and it won't come up.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
Okay.
Like at all. And actually, they're working on something that will sort of be a little bit more like what we see on most other probably tools, where there's like a predictive text, right? Where you start to type and it sort of is like, oh, hey, I found an address that looks like that,
Similar
right?
to-
But that's not here yet, right? But within the next 6 months, right? We can expect something like that. The real clue, or not the clue, but like tip that I have for that, you pretty much can't do it in that bar. That bar that we call the speed bar is like something where you can learn a, sort of code a little bit to search in. And actually that little sort of like question mark to the left of where you typed in the address kind of does have that, like if you click on it, the instructions for how to learn that code, if anyone ever wants to do that. I don't use that very often, even though it's totally doable. It's kind of a bear to like learn and figure out, and it's honestly easier just to go to the regular search screens.
Okay.
And so the thing that I will say about addresses, though, that can help a little bit. So it's still not going to work in that bar up there.
Okay.
But if you go to like the criteria page that you were on just a moment ago, then there is a spot to put in an address. But even that can be a little bit touchy. To see up towards the top, yeah, right there.
Okay.
The thing that can help there, especially if you're maybe talking with a customer who has like maybe a partial address or something, right? Maybe they remember the street, but they don't know the number or something like that. What you can do in that, sort of little spot there is you can use an asterisk as a wild card. So you can put partial information in there.
So where was that at?
So
Sorry.
right there where it says, yeah, like street number and street name, right where your mouse is right now,
So here.
right? Yeah, let's say someone says like, oh, it was on,
Heather Lane.
yeah, right, or something like that. And then maybe it's, spelled one way or another, and you're like, I'm not sure, what to put where. Like you could just put Heather and put an asterisk after that, and it'll look for anything that starts with that, even though there might be stuff after that.
Awesome.
And that works wherever you put the asterisk. So sometimes it might be the opposite, where you're like, oh, it's on, was it Wolf Haven or Woodhaven, or something like that. You could put asterisk, if I could even say the word, and then, the second half of the word or whatever part it is you do know.
Okay.
And that works in other places in Matrix too. So if you ever like, I only know part of this, just use an asterisk, it'll work.
I think I use asterisk when I'm looking up designated brokers and managing brokers, like their name too.
On
Totally.
the roster?
I can, on the roster, I use that. So like if I'm looking up who, David, and it's kind of a hyphenated or something.
Oh, hyphenated last name,
Yep,
where you've got one portion of it. Okay.
Yeah, or one of the names that might be spelled multiple ways, like Anderson, right? Is it S-O-N? Is it S-E-N? Or anything like that? You can just put what you know and then an asterisk, and
and it'll pull up the majority.
Yep.
Joe. Okay, so asterisks after the word.
Or before.
Or
it's
before.
basically wherever you put it is where you're, it's the part you don't know.
Okay, I think that's what I was probably looking for. It's just like that shortcut help, because sometimes it's like Heather Lane or Heather Drive, and I'm
Yes,
trying
exactly.
to
And you're
put
like, I don't
Heather,
know.
and there's no match.
And
Okay.
sometimes too, not that this, should ever happen, but someone will enter an address incorrectly, right? So they'll end up putting one part, maybe in like they'll write the word lane where they're supposed to just put the name of the street and things like that. So even if you totally know the correct address, it can be sometimes hard to pull it up if someone sort of entered it slightly off. Like if you saw it, you'd still recognize it, right? But you can't pull it up. So it helps for that kind of thing too.
That's awesome. That's wonderful.
So it's less is more, Roxanne, right? So if it's like 98th Street, you might want to put 98, then asterisk.
And then
For
asterisk.
sure. Those
Okay.
little ordinals can really throw things off too. Like, did
Okay.
somebody put that or not? Right?
And it's before or after. It doesn't matter. It's
Doesn't
gonna be-
matter.
Okay, that's wonderful. That's great.
I use the asterisk as well for like, if I'm looking for 55 plus communities. Some people don't, they put in their market remarks, so they don't put it in, so I can do a cross property search. And then go to marketing, Candace,
So go,
Yeah,
so where
go
is
down.
this?
to the marketing remarks.
Okay.
So
Yes.
you put 55 and then
And then the
asterisk.
asterisk.
And I think put it before and after, is that right?
Yeah, in that little spot, because that's pretty much the only way to search any of the remarks is right here on this page.
Okay.
And if you have like a certain feature that you want to look for, like 55 plus, and you're like, well, they don't always mark it, right? You
Right.
go in there and you want to surround it with the asterisks, because basically you want to tell the system there's something that comes before this, there's something that comes after this, but I know that this like word or phrase is going to be in there somewhere.
55. So that's great. So marketing remarks 55.
It's another example.
Right. Or
Asterisk.
like, yeah, or maybe
Or maybe
RV
there's-
parking or something, RV.
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Oh, that's great.
Okay, let's go to the next question.
Does anybody, let me check the chat. If you have a question, go ahead and put it in the chat. This is open. Let's see here.
Go to TransactionDesk. I think we loved your call, Roxanne, on helping us with the new Authentisign.
Oh, right. Yeah. I think that was the last time we got
That's
together.
last time we connected, and it was really well attended, and I learned a ton on how to do that. We're still having trouble with slicing, like cutting stuff out.
Yeah, totally.
Can you help us with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little funky, I think, is sort of the problem with
it?
using those tools. I mean, really, it's just that you have to kind of use them in the right order or it gets a little bit messed up. Is there something that you can go to, some document inside of a transaction or anywhere that we can mess
Maybe,
with?
I think so.
I don't want to
let's see.
slice something good.
Well, I think all of this is, let me see here. Let's not do that. Let's go. No, what am I trying to do? I'm trying to go to my house and to a transaction that I can slice something in. This is closed. Okay, so this is closed. And so if I am going into signing.
Well, is that where you wanted to slice or in
Well,
the?
yeah, okay, so let
we
me just
slice
bring
here?
this big one. The biggest one for me is I want to only send an offer one time for signing and everything to be in there. For me, what I'm doing is I'm sending, the offer and then the Form 17 and the 22E separately.
Okay, right.
So I'd rather send everything and then be able to, once I get it back, slice it.
Totally.
Or just cut it up. So
We want the consumer, basically, Roxanne, to have it easy, just so they just sign.
Totally. They get one packet and then you guys can do whatever you need to do with the pieces sort of after they sign it. Excuse me. Well, one of the things that you sort of want to keep in mind, if that's the end goal, is that you want to really only have them, like you were saying, sign once, right? Or as few as you can manage, right? Because sometimes it'll end up being two anyway, right? Or something. And so you want to make sure that when you're starting the signing, first of all, you're doing it where that makes sense. So you have everything kind of ready to go and put together. And then what you want to do is, at least the best sort of tip that I have that helps me. And this, I'm saying that little caveat, because if someone has another way of doing this, it's fine. If it works for you, it doesn't matter, because what you're pulling up right now isn't what I can slice yet, right? So if you close that you just opened, the first thing that I want to like sort of say is that when you're getting a signing started, the easiest way to do it is to have it start from inside of a transaction, right? So if you go into like one of your particular transactions, as opposed to like this spot with the pen.
Okay. Okay.
And it doesn't matter because we won't really do anything. So if you want to just,
Pick one.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, here we go.
And then over on the right, where there's that menu on the right, so that's like your like transaction menu. Then if you click where it says signings there to get your signing started, because it technically will work if you go the other place too. But if you come here to start it, like, and if you clicked add, it's going to have access to every single thing that's in this transaction. So you can easily pull in like all of the forms and the documents that you want to have signed. So it is in one big packet.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So like if you click there where it says like add a document or form, and that shows up in a couple spots, you just have the big list and you can click add over there on the right for as many things as you want.
Okay.
But she's not going to want that though, right, Roxanne? Because she's already got it signed. So
Yes. Yeah. So that's just the tip, right? Of how to make it easy for the client to have one big whole thing. In this case, though, you already have it and you want to slice it.
Right.
Right. And so, and you can delete this one too. Obviously, it's going to be like, oh, you started a signing and that's, you didn't mean to, right? Sorry.
No.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Oh yeah, see.
So now we got one that's like, let's use the counter offer, Roxanne. So you've got one that's completed.
Okay.
And that counter offer, we obviously we don't want to send that off to the other agent with all of the goodies that are attached to that.
So yeah, so what you want to do here is what you did before was you opened the PDF, but don't do that. Go instead to the document section of this transaction.
Right.
So this is where the steps are going to change. So that's on the right menu. So that menu that's sort of like, there's those two menus, which is what's the hardest in TransactionDesk to get used to, I think. The one on the left is sort of like the main system menu. And then when you're inside of a transaction, the menu over on the right is like that specific transactions menu. So when you're working in a transaction, it's usually the right that you want to go to and sort of ignore those icons on the left.
Okay.
And so if you go over to the right and you click on where it says documents.
That's where I'm at here.
Okay. And then there should be a folder for that file.
So here, this one.
Yeah. And so this is interesting. So this is going to have it up in sections, right? As opposed to the whole thing. So this would be really easy. This doesn't even need to be sliced, I'm realizing.
Right.
But that's one benefit. So I guess what I'll say is when you have a signing complete in Authentisign, you're going to have the email that comes to you with that PDF that's however many pages, right? And that same thing is available for you to download like you saw earlier if you go to Authentisign. But here in TransactionDesk, it's automatically going to split it back up for you and plop those signed versions here.
Each one. Okay, so I could send everything out. Once it comes back signed, I would go into documents. It would, and each item would be here.
Yes. Now that still might not be exactly what you want to share though. Because if you want to be able to send this to your clients, and you do want it all put together with maybe one or two pieces missing. Right. There's still some other tools in here that can be helpful. So here in this document section, like where you're sitting right now, what you have is basically these tools that can it's sort of the same if anyone's ever used like an Adobe Pro, sort of tool where you can get a PDF and you can, write on it and you can take out a page and add a page in or something like that, right? Those same like things that can be done for the most part in a tool like that also works here. It's just so much less easy to use, but it's free, right? So, when you want it, it's there for you. So it's a give and take for sure. But yeah, if you click on that menu, so if you went to like that file right there and you'll see there's both. See how it says slice and markup? If you click on that, it'll say which one do you want to do. Well, markup we don't really probably need to go into, but if you ever need to type on it or whatever, that's where you'd go. And then slice, that's what we want to show today. This is going to basically take all of the pages of whatever this document is and like lay it out like it's on a
Wow,
table,
yay.
right? Yeah. And what you can do from here, right, is you can delete a page. You can kind of click one and there's like a little
Form 17 in here.
trash can.
I
icon.
don't
Oh, hang on
want
one
the Form
second.
17 in here, so I want to take the Form 17 and,
Trash it.
sorry, do I just
What do we do to eliminate
trash
them?
it? So, or is this selecting the ones that you want?
So say we wanted, Roxanne, we want to take off the Form 17 right here.
Yeah,
So
so this is down here.
do we just,
Oh, sorry guys, I disappeared for a second,
okay.
but I'm
No.
back.
Do we want to
So
take
yeah,
off the-
so if you want to take a part out,
Yep,
Mhm.
we want the Form 17 out.
you can select those pages just by clicking on them. You'll see that they get like blue outlines.
Okay,
Like that. And then if your point is to
oh,
have the rest of it without this, right? Then you would go to the trash can at this stage.
okay,
And if you want only that, you would do kind of the opposite.
okay.
Beautiful.
Yes,
This is great.
this is wonderful, wonderful. I hope this is helpful to everyone. And I think I might have learned this maybe 4 years ago and did
Well,
it
right.
one time and then forgot. So
If you never use it, of course, don't need to, right? There's lots of things that are sort of hidden, especially in TransactionDesk, I think.
So
right,
by slicing, we don't lose it. We're just basically creating another document.
Yeah, well, what happens is you kind of have the option, but I would obviously always recommend that you make a new one. So when you hit save after you make a change, which is in
Okay.
the corner, it pops up like with a couple choices. And it's sort of like what you would expect on like a, even a Word document or whatever,
Mhm.
right? If you save it, you're basically going to overwrite the original. But if you do save as, give it a new name,
Okay.
then
this,
you're good to go.
without,
Without Form 17. Probably want to just label it offer, whatever you want to do. But, yeah, that's great.
And then you'll have both,
Awesome.
right? You could hit close now. So this irritates me, and I hope it changes someday. But here's the worst part about using this tool, I swear. When you're done, right? Like you did it, perfect. If you go and hit that red close button,
mhm.
it's like, do you want to save this? But you literally just did it. So you can say no.
Oh, you can't.
But every
say
time I'm like,
that. It
yeah.
doesn't duplicate though, even if I did hit save, or does it?
It just saves again, it looks like.
It does.
Yeah, no. So now you have a new one and then you have the old one.
Okay,
Well,
okay.
that takes care of the slicing now. Let's go to the next question. So far, Roxanne, we haven't stumped you. I knew we picked the right.
It's definitely possible though. So if that's the goal, don't worry, you'll get there.
All right. While we were talking Form 17s, this question comes up a lot. How do I send a Form 17 so it's fillable to a seller?
Right. And I think the thing that confuses most folks when it comes to that sort of in general is that what you're expecting to be able to do, which makes sense, but you can't, is have it go basically with a signing, right? Because if you hand someone a Form 17 in person, or how email it to them or whatever, when they get it back to you, they filled it out and signed it at the same time. Right. And so when you do it through TransactionDesk, you have to separate those two actions. So they fill it out online, and I'll show you how to do that in a sec. And then they're going to sign it too, but they're not going to do that at the same time.
Right.
And that's just the first thing to kind of wrap your brain around,
Not
which,
gonna happen all in one.
can be helpful. I mean, sometimes if you're talking about maybe you're the listing broker, you could send the Form 17 out maybe earlier than you might normally or something like that. So it's all filled out before they need to sign other stuff. I don't know, you can think about what would work. But once you want to send it to be filled out, you can, just go right into it. So you can go ahead and click on that link that you're in. And you're going to email it like you email basically like anything from here. So you just go, file, send, it's down there, and then email. But what's going to be different here is after you pick your form, sorry, it's asking us again. Yeah. Which one do you want? It's here where you take certain actions. So you can put in whoever you're sending it to, write a note, all that stuff's pretty standard. But then if you look underneath that, you'll see that there's a little like radio button, like a circle that's selected that says send as a link.
Okay.
And that's what you want, right? And it does default to that. But then you also, in a case of wanting them to fill it out, you need to also check this box under that says allow editing of forms. It's that second checkbox that people usually skip, if they make an error. So just FYI, if someone calls you and says, I got it, but I can't fill it out, probably you forgot that checkbox. And then you put an expiration date. The expiration date can be like whenever. What I usually do is I just put it off way in the future, unless of course you just want to get, everything done in like a certain time. You can say, hey, you have till Friday or whatever. You could always send it again, right? So you're putting this expiration date here, but it's not something that's, untweakable. And then you would just send it and they would get it. And it really looks a lot like what you see here. And they just type right into it like you would. It's almost identical, except that their menu up at the top is much more limited. They basically can just save it.
I didn't get the email yet.
It takes a few minutes to get the email. The client, how long?
No,
does
it should come pretty darn
Oh.
quick. I mean, it can take 1 minute maybe, but and then what'll happen too is you'll get an email when they have done some editing, like just it lets you know, that they're in there.
Yeah,
And yeah, so this is the email they get, right?
Okay.
And then they would just
I
click
think
right
this
on
is
that
probably
link.
helpful to see too.
For sure.
And Celeste will get to you after this. So I saw your hand raised. So just be prepared to unmute your line.
Okay.
And so see, can you
I
check
don't
in
wanna
those
touch
boxes
around
and
this-
stuff? I know, I guess you
The
shouldn't, right?
post-transaction, right? But yeah, so then it would just check.
Exactly.
And so they just go through complete in entirety.
Yeah, and you'll
And
see they
then-
can't sign, right? So they'll just be able to say, I'm done. All they have to do is hit the save button.
So you can tell them just hit save and exit and
Right.
then.
And
this
then
is
right
where-
away, you'll be able to go in and see the changes, because the truth is they're actively inside of that specific form that's sitting in that transaction.
That's it.
They always think though, Roxanne, that they're like, it doesn't let me sign anything. And I always
I
have to
know.
tell every client. So if that's something you can bring up to whoever the powers.
Yeah,
that be.
there's a couple ideas some folks have, and they're seeing what they can do to kind of make that happen. Likely, I think what we'll see is that there will be a version that sort of shows up in Authentisign that they could fill out while they're signing.
So
But-
there's not anything that shows that it's been completed, but you do get a notification.
Yeah,
when
so
they
you,
open it.
because it doesn't really know if it's been completed or not. So I will say that the best thing that you can do for yourself, if you're, sending things out to be filled out this way, is to double check it before you maybe even send it to Authentisign or anything like that, because they could, in addition to you just not knowing for sure if they're done, right? They could have missed a line by accident and they think they're done, because it's
Right.
honestly just as easy to do it on that version as it is on the paper version. So it's good to have your eyes on it and make sure everything's filled out before you move to the next step.
Right. And so this is what the email looks like. It's
For the agent.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, awesome. So I
Oh,
think
good tip, Celeste.
that's, let's see.
You
here.
CC yourself when you send the form 17. That's a good idea.
Oh yeah, perfect.
Oh, okay.
Great idea.
And then it
Celeste.
also sends an email when they open. Yes, we get that. Yeah, perfect.
Awesome. So let's go ahead and unmute your line if you have another question for Roxanne.
Sorry, I didn't raise my hand. I hit that by accident, but I do want to say with the Form 17, and I learned this the hard way. If you open the Form 17 before they finish filling it out, it stops. So like if I open it before they're done finishing it out, it will erase everything they've done.
Oh,
So you really want to wait until they're done filling out the Form 17 before you open it, because it's a live active file back and forth. Does that make sense?
okay.
Yeah, she's 100% right. And that's probably the scariest thing about doing things this way. It typically doesn't cause that problem because it does kind of need which unfortunately sounds like Celeste found, but the
Oh,
kind of like
hard way.
perfect aligning of the planets a little bit to really happen. But it's true that whatever form you're sending out, it is, like I said, and what, like she said, the same version, like the real true one that's sitting in your transaction. And so if you have it open and you're just looking at it and they have it open at the same time and they're filling it out, let's say they fill it out and you still have it open. If you hit save and exit, after they did, and you were looking at a blank copy, whatever you had up is going to sort of overwrite whatever they had.
Right.
So usually, just to make it easy, right, I would say if you send something like that, wait until they tell you they're done or you get that email before you go into it. It's just going to save you from that. Really, I'm sorry that happened to you, Celeste. That's the worst.
Oh, it's okay. It happened
Yeah.
once, and trust me, it never happened
Doesn't
again.
happen.
Right, I bet.
Because I don't open the Form 17 until I get that email back saying that it's completed.
Yeah, perfect.
So there is one that says it's complete. Oh,
Well, it says
because
it's
you see
edited. It
yourself.
doesn't, yeah, so you know they've filled stuff out.
Okay.
It just doesn't know for sure if it's literally completed,
Okay.
you know, like they've hit everything they need to hit. So it does still need your eyes on it afterwards.
Got it. Okay. Awesome. Wonderful.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's
Thank
go
you
to
for
the-
that. So the next I have here is auto search, like setting up an auto search.
Yeah,
Let me
And
see.
both Candace and I use this feature, Roxanne, but we do have a lot of questions from newer agents that maybe forgotten on Matrix how to set that up. You know, they have
totally.
a client that's wanting to be notified when properties come on the market. So we probably need to run through that real quickly.
Yeah, and that's pretty simple, but it's so, you know, major for if you're going to use Matrix, right?
Yeah.
It's such a helpful tool. So the idea is if you run a search for one of your clients, so you can, you know, I don't know, go to actually, if you look at the like sort of top right of your screen, you'll see a spot where it says, just in case anyone doesn't know this, where it says recent searches underneath your name. So literally totally top right.
Oh.
Yeah. It'll show you like your 50 most recent searches. So if you ever click away from one and you're like, oh, I want to go back there, it's easy to do that. But the idea, and I was just saying that because you could go to something that exists already, right? But the idea is you would go and build a search, right? So you can go to any of the searches.
Now, before we do that too, so Candace and we talked about this, I've been taught to use cross property when I'm just looking for, because it's going to pull all of the different type of areas, like maybe I'm looking for condo, maybe I'm looking for all of those different multifamily.
Yeah.
Cross property, isn't that pulling everything from?
Yes.
LinkedIn? Okay, that's what
So
cross property is.
yeah, cross property will look across, you know, each of the different property types. So you can totally see like condos and land and whatever in the same search if you want to. It can be a little bit hard to use if you're, you know, not careful about sort of what the criteria is, or if you're not, you know, if you need to be more specific, it only works when it's super general or open. Sorry, there's a loud sound at my window. The thing that makes it hard with cross property is that the minute you put in one piece of criteria that only works for one kind of property type, it will basically only return those results to you, right? So if I do a cross property search and I put in a bedroom count, it's not going to show me any land. If that makes sense.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
totally.
it does work, and it totally is good for, you know what, I use it most when I'm doing things like looking up a specific maybe agent's work or something like that, right? Or office or location, right? Maybe you're not really looking for something necessarily, you know, like for someone who's looking for a single family home, right? But they're like interested in this one little neighborhood, right? Or something.
Yeah.
So there's lots of uses for cross property, but it can be tricky. So generally, I would say, unless you have a real need to look for more than one thing at once, I would probably stick with the property type ones.
Okay.
But it does work. You know what I mean? It could work either way. It just needs, you know, some thought and I don't like to give too much thought to things.
No, that's great. So then when we're talking search, Candace and I were looking at this, we use quick, we use general, we use vacant land, cross property, general. What is property listing history, change type history, public records? We don't use
Yeah, those change type ones, I can't think of a use for them, to be honest. I mean,
So,
maybe someone at my organization is doing it to look for some sort of stats for the MLS or something like that. But on an individual basis, I would
Not
say I've
missing-
never used them. I will say though that the public record one is pretty useful. It really just allows you to search for any parcel in like the state of Washington. It basically gives you kind of an access to the Realist information without going to Realist and
Okay.
just staying in Matrix. So that can be helpful. It's pretty straightforward. You put in an address. It's a lot easier than searching for one a broker typed in because it's all coming from the county. But this is helpful for maybe if you're looking up a property you're going to list, right? And you're trying to gather some information about it. And its history. So public record can be useful depending on the kind of things come up for you
It
as a
looks like
broker.
Jamie noted that you can also find addresses through the public record. So kind of
Yeah, and it's easier to do, right?
Oh,
Jamie, I'm sure
without
you've noticed
having to
that.
use the asterisks and whatnot. So okay,
Right.
That's great.
awesome.
We're learning-
Thank you.
We're learning things new.
Let's
So
see.
now if we're gonna search, let's go and just do a general search and save it. Like say, for you, you're probably looking at Tacoma somewhere.
Sure.
Yeah, and I will say when it comes to all those other options like quick, general, whatever, none of those matter. Those are more of a personal preference kind of
They
thing. So if
don't
you have
matter?
one you like,
Well, I
no,
think, I feel like on mine, I guess it doesn't. I feel like there's some times that I will go into search, and if I do quick, I don't have as many fields, maybe.
that's true. That is true.
Okay.
So that's the
And
difference.
then-
Quick has fewer, but you could, of course, like you were, when you scroll down, you can add in any of the,
The fields
search
here,
fields you
right,
want to either of them.
And
standard.
when you guys are training Matrix, do you teach them how to add the additional fields? Is that part of
Yes.
the content? Okay.
Yeah, in that like sort of introductory class, but that's also a very overwhelming chunk
I
of
know.
information. So it's easy for little things to certainly,
Because sometimes when they get to me, when we're teaching CMA, Roxanne,
yeah.
they don't have that and it's super,
Right.
Yeah,
This-
you can't, you need to be able to,
Yeah.
you're not going to be able to find the properties you're looking for without the additional fields for
Mhm.
sure.
Okay.
So I'll bring that back to the team because no, it's definitely an
I'd
important
say it's
piece of
about-
being able to search.
It's about 50%. That's what.
Oh,
we're-
wow. Okay. That's good to know. That's really good to know.
So we do want to, if you could want to add additional fields, like the ones that we use a lot for CMA would be style code. We use
Mhm.
that a lot.
Mhm.
And we use also property type. And then
Right.
also waterfront.
Mhm.
So like
Lots of
waterfront
main
views, because we have to make adjustments for those types of things. And so
Yeah, and I saw a question or a comment pop up in the chat that I just want to address really quick while we're here about how it's hard to find the fields, because it is a little bit, but there is a total trick to that.
Oh,
So
good.
if you go to, it's kind of an irritating trick, but it's a trick. Yeah, if you go there, go ahead and click on add/remove. So all of those available fields on the left, right? Those are the ones, of course, that you can pick from.
Right.
Some of them are really self-explanatory and obvious, like ADU bathrooms. Okay, great, right? But there's a lot of them that are, at least to me, significantly less obvious, especially because the title that you might see there, like they're like building information, right,
Mhm.
is one that's there. If you, have that, it's including items in it that to most of us, just seeing building information isn't going to tell us that also, these other things are sort of inside of that. So the trick basically is that what the titles that you're seeing over there on the left in that list of available fields, they
Mhm.
match what's on the listing input form. And so if you're like, hey, I want to search for an equestrian property, I know that's there. I've seen it on the form. It's a checkbox. I've seen it in listings, but you're like, wait, how do I do that? If you came here, you're never going to see equestrian show up on here because it's just one of the options. And it's one of the, and this isn't my example because it's the weirdest one.
The one.
It's an option in a field called lot topography / vegetation,
Okay.
right? So I would never intuit that, right? I'd never be like, oh, it must be that I want equestrian, it must be in this random thing. So what at least when I was first sort of getting used to things, what I often did was I had that form and I'd reference it. So if you really just look at the form 1, you'll be able to see all these headings, and then you'll see the
Right.
titles match over there. So if you can find it on the input form, you can figure out how to add it to your search. That's a little
That
silly,
makes
but it
sense.
does
That
work.
makes sense.
Little
Because
extra
even
work.
if I put in like equestrian, it's
Right.
not.
It's not going to put, but if you put in lot topography, then when you go backwards, you'll see equestrian's one of the choices
Bam.
inside of that heading.
There it
And
is.
then you, if you want to add it, you would click on it and then you would click add and then it would go over
So you
to
click
the
the add.
recorder. And once you do that, it saves, right? So then
Yes.
you can go back.
And you can always come back and change it, but it'll stay unless you do.
So that's what I was curious about. So if I do go in and set this up, it should save and be there all the time.
Yeah. And that's what's nice. You can put the
Auto.
things that come up often for you. It's probably different for everybody a little bit, you know. And then you can always tweak it, but it'll just sort of stay there. So you can use it every time or not, right? No
Yeah.
harm if you just let it sit there.
Right.
All right, good. So we want to set up a search so we can go through
Oh,
that.
right.
There's a
Sorry,
lot of
I got
people-
distracted.
No, it's okay. So let's just say I had a great conversation. I'm a buyer. I'm like, Candace, I want equestrian.
Yeah, right. You go ahead. It's down there now.
Yeah.
Just scroll down and
Where is
click
it?
on.
All
There
the
won't
way
be
at
too
the
many,
bottom.
probably.
Okay.
And I want to keep it under, let's keep it under 1.5 million.
You know, this is like a quiz, Candace. We're all watching you.
Right. And then we want to
You have to
do
do a minus. Good. So she did it right. Because a lot of people ask about that in the new agents. How do I do search for properties that are 1 million or 1.7?
Yeah.
Well, so that's
equestrian property, and what county was that?
let's go Pierce County. Let's see if anything comes up. And specifically Tacoma.
Okay.
Most likely it's gonna be like 98444, you know.
Right.
It's about all that's left with equestrian now.
I know. I'm
Well-
sort of, yeah,
well, I
kind of
think-
curious what actually comes up.
Well, you said specifically Tacoma.
Yeah. So did you notice that that city thing filled in when you selected the county? So now you should be able in city to go down to T.
Tacoma.
Yeah, it's empty until you put the county.
There it is. Okay.
Do I
Okay.
have anything? There's 7,
3.
3.
3 whole properties. Let's
They
take a
should
look at
really-
them, everybody.
Advise me though, because 7's not very much to set up a search. We probably want some more counties.
Yeah.
So you might want to say, Rochelle, we need
Let's
to really
go
open
to
it up.
that. Actually, let's just add all of Pierce County.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah. Or you can even deselect Tacoma. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
And then it's up to 36.
There
That's
we
much
go.
better.
So now we have this search.
So go
and
to the results.
here. Oh, results. Okay.
Yeah, and there's multiple ways to get there. I do always use that one at the top, but wherever you click is fine.
Okay.
And then so here they are, right? So when we're talking about the automatic emails,
Mhm.
what we're essentially, I mean, we have these 36, you know, sort of matches right now based on that criteria. But
Right.
what we're really doing when we set up an automatic email is that we're basing it on what we put on the criteria page. And so the idea behind it, right, is that I can come here as a broker and I can say, my client wants these, you know, equestrian properties in Pierce County. I put it in once and then it's going to just sort of do the work for me theoretically, right? And keep sending them the new ones as they come on the market until I tell it to stop.
Right?
Well,
Great.
there's 2 ways to do that. Or not 2 ways. The steps are pretty much the same, but there's 2 different kinds of automatic emails that you can set up in Matrix.
Okay.
But the thing that is the most important, I think, if you're someone who's really sort of like, I don't use this feature yet, I don't really understand it. The most important thing to keep in mind is that your criteria is what makes an automatic email worthwhile. Right. So the search that you set up is really important because sometimes someone will set up an auto email for our clients or they'll come to me and say, oh, and you know, they're not looking at everything. And then we'll look and it'll turn out maybe it's too broad. Right. And they're getting like hundreds of things. And, you know, the search maybe wasn't specific enough, or maybe it's the opposite, right? And they're like, well, there's only one, you know, maybe you could lighten up on my criteria a little or whatever. So keep that in mind. And it is something that you can tweak, right? So if you don't get it right the first time after you talk to your clients, you can always come back and change it. So it's not the end of the world, but do keep that in mind, right? And so in the case of, let's say we built the search perfectly, right? We did. So now we've got these Pierce County equestrian properties. To set up the automatic email, we go to the toolbar at the bottom, which you probably are kind of used to because everything's down there. And in the case of the auto email, we click on save. Now that's a little funny because there's an email option and actions, but that's just for like a one-off. If you want to do this automatic thing, you have to go to save. And then you'll see there's an option in the middle that says new auto email or something like that. Okay. And so here you start with kind of the basics, like you'd put in a contact, and you don't really have to even fill this out. If I don't want you to have to start sending things to somebody.
No, that's fine. Have her send me stuff in Equestrian. Sounds good.
All right, perfect.
So add me, Candace.
And look at Candace adding the contact on the fly. No big deal. Just knows exactly where to click. Pretty impressed.
Okay.
You don't need a phone or a cell. You can
I'm gonna
just
change that
right.
to hi, Rochelle.
Oh,
Nice and cash. I like
think-
that.
Does it make you put the phone number in?
No, the only things you have to put in Matrix are the things that are yellow.
Okay.
Anytime you see something yellow, it's required, and anything that's not yellow is, optional.
Perfect. Okay. Save.
All right. And so the auto emails are going to have, when they're working correctly, or for your client, they're going to have two different kinds of emails that go out. There's going to be the first one that they get that has sort of like a welcome nature to it, right? That's like, welcome, there's a search that's been set up for you, click here. And then after that first one, there's a bunch of other emails that come that's just like, okay, and here's the update, right? Here's some new listings for you to check out. And so here's where you can customize that text. There's sort of like a general message in there, but you can always type over it. And you can also, if you write like your own personal one that you want to save to like repeat for all of your clients, if you take the time to do that, there's that little gear icon, down there on the bottom right, that lets you save that as your new default. Right. So if you're someone who uses a lot of them, that can be nice. And you don't have to do anything with those. You can totally, just leave them with that standard message. But, it's pretty generic. So if you ever wanted to, give your people a little bit more of a,
And the subject line would be something that would be catchy, right? Something that Rochelle's equestrian properties or potential.
Yeah, and I will say, since we have gosh, has it been a year already? I guess it's maybe more, but since the sort of client portal has been updated to OneHome is sort of like what it's called now, even though a lot of it's pretty much the same. It will show that subject line for your clients as the name of this search. So if you were going to have maybe like multiple searches for one of your clients, maybe they're looking at a couple different places, they've got a couple different things going on, whatever you title the subject of this here will show for them. So it's sometimes good. In the past, this didn't matter as much, but I feel like now it's nice if it is descriptive, like those ones that you had there that was like, oh, less than this amount or this location or whatever. So just doesn't matter for this one, but in general, you do want it to be, something that they're not going to get irritated seeing, because they're going to see it a lot potentially, right? If they have a lot of new listings to come check out, and it's pretty, descriptive to what it is, because that's helpful. Now, those things you have to do every single time. But then when you come down here to like the settings section, this is when you have to decide which kind of automatic email you want to send, because there's these two different kinds. Now, one of them is called concierge mode, where you essentially act as the concierge. And then the other one is called direct to client, where you're sort of out of it. So with the concierge mode, what happens if there's a new listing on the market is that when Matrix notices that it matches this criteria for this search, it emails you, right? So not your client, but you, and then you can come into Matrix, you look at it, and if you want to send it forward, you hit, send, and if you don't, you hit reject. And that's good sometimes if you need to hold somebody's hand, but I do feel like our stats on the concierge mode have gone down in recent years, right? I think people are used to just kind of getting like a feed of info at this point. And so, it's definitely there as an option, but probably most of the time folks are doing the other option, which is direct to client.
Yeah,
and so
I always tell them, don't be offended by anything that might come to you, but I don't put too many restrictions on what comes out to you. So you might get something that's not a match, but don't be offended by it by any means.
I like that she does that little extra step, because that's the benefit of the concierge, Roxanne, was because it's much more personal. But if you set it up with your clients that it is kind of I'm going to set you up with an automatic search, it's going to identify the different parameters, but don't be offended. I like how Candace kind of sets the expectation that there may be some things that are totally out of whack That's good. And then is that all we have to do is just once you?
Yeah, and then you uncheck it.
Mhm.
And then you can pick between like these different options for the schedule.
Most people
ASAP
don't
is
do that.
probably most commonly used, but if you have a search ever that is going to have like a ton of results, you might want to do the daily instead. Because with the ASAP, it truly will send a new email every time there's a single listing that comes on the market. So
Oh,
if it's the kind of search where like 10 new ones are coming every day, rather than getting 10 emails, one each, it might be nice to be like, here's your morning digest of all 10,
Right.
you know, but and now you can tweak those things too.
Yeah.
But that's the sort of magic of
For
that.
morning or evening.
Right. And you can even do both.
And then they also have a monthly, so the first of the
Yeah,
month.
monthly, it's more like maybe not for a buyer, right?
Right.
But maybe you have someone who's like, oh, I'm going to sell in the summer and I want to see what's going on in my
Right.
neighborhood, or, you know, something like that. And then you would just hit save. And
monthly, you
it
should,
starts.
you should be using the monthly for your sellers. If you have a
Right,
listing,
so that they
you
can
need a
get that
monthly report of like
information.
what is going on in their neighborhood. So that's what I use the monthly for.
I like that.
So, and it's pretty cool. I think I have it set up for one of my sellers. So that was it. And then Rochelle probably will have an
Yeah, she's going to
email
have an email.
with
Exactly.
36 new properties. And my
Yeah, and then she's going to keep getting
dashboard.
them too.
Yeah.
And I will say that the auto emails, a couple things to know about them. If someone misses it, like let's say it goes into their spam folder or they delete it by accident or something like that, if they miss the first one, it can kind of cause a problem for them.
Right.
Because the very first email that gets sent to the client is kind of like an opt-in. Right? It doesn't really say that or anything in the email, but it has, you know, the link for them to click to look at the properties. And
Right.
if they click on it, they're sort of activating the auto email. And if they don't click on it, it doesn't send them any follow-up emails. So if you ever have someone who's like, I didn't get it, and they're clearly not getting those things, you can always go back to that contact and resend the first email. If they miss one of the follow-up ones, that doesn't matter. Right. So it's okay if they're like, oh, I deleted that one from last week by accident because I just didn't care or something like that. It's just the very first one. So yeah, click on there. And then you can see it, there's like a little menu at the top. Yeah, go to where it says auto email. And you'll see here, there's even resend welcome up there at the top, right next to the delete, the red delete.
Oh,
Oh, gotcha.
there it is. Okay.
Okay.
Sorry,
I didn't
I'm just
see it.
looking and looking. There it is.
It's the one thing that I wish was sort of a little bit different, or haven't quite figured out how to make it perfect yet, is how to kind of like know that your people did do this. The only way that you can really find out if someone has an active auto email is to check.
Right.
So you can go to their contact here, or you can go, up there to where it says My Matrix auto emails. Then you can see all of them at once. And you can see those see the green check marks on the left?
Yes.
That's
So
what you
that
want,
does.
right? So you can see how all of them have that except for the new one, which is just sort of like waiting. And so if that was still waiting like that and it was like a week, you'd be like, whoa, you know, they never got that. Or
She hasn't done anything.
I know, what's her problem, right? Maybe she's just faking me out.
Yeah, that's perfect. I think we got through that. Let's go to the next one. I know I'm running, I got 8 minutes left. I got
Okay.
2 or 3
Was
other
there
little
any
things.
other question on this? I'm sorry. Let me see. Gotta find the chat here.
While you're doing that, Roxanne, talk to me about down payment assistance. That
Yeah, and it's going to be fun when people can maybe even use it now that the things are not going in 5 seconds, although, you know, downside to that too, I suppose. But so down payment resource is this like a database essentially of down payment assistance programs. So it's not affiliated with any lender or anything. It's just sort of this like not-for-profit thing, right? And it's connected now to Matrix. So yeah, and they have all kinds of things that are kind of interesting. Like they have these.
so she has never clicked on the tab. Are we always going to see this if you haven't clicked on that link?
No, you just have to click on it once.
Okay.
I mean, you know, and then hits, yeah, and then it comes to this. This page can be useful, but I'll tell you the best part about down payment resource is sort of already just embedded in Matrix. So like if you go back to your Matrix window, and even just hop back to that search we just did or something, right? So like our equestrian search, or, whatever, just pull up some properties,
Okay.
essentially. Yes, this works. That's perfect, right? If you look over on the right, well, no, go back to that view where it was.
Sorry.
She's as
No.
happy as I
I
am,
know.
Roxanne.
Then that it's there too, but it's easier to see here. Yeah, over there on the far right. Some of the properties, you'll see one of them doesn't have it, right? So if it has that little icon, it means that there is a program that property could qualify for. And if it doesn't, it means there's not. And if you go to one of those icons, those green, icons for one of the properties, and click on it from there, what it will do is it'll actually show you the, say, don't show this again. Yeah, it's a silly pop-up. It'll show you the actual programs. And so this is something where, you could look at it for sure, but I feel like the most helpful part of it is this same icon is in the OneHome. So when you email your clients properties, they have this list link too. And when they click on that link, if they want to, so they could ignore it, or you could point it out to them too, if they want to sort of draw attention to this, then it asks them some questions, not like personal questions. Well, I guess it's kind of personal, but it's not like your mother's maiden name. It's like, how many people live in your house? What's your income? You don't have to put their name or anything. And then it will say, okay, you're qualifying for, 2 of the 4 programs or whatever. There's a lot of them here. I'm always surprised at how many exist. And we've had a couple of opportunities to talk to the housing commission and things like that, and it just seems like they're desperate to hand out money to people, which of course probably isn't quite how that works. But if you have clients who might be eligible for some of these things, gosh, they should take advantage of it for sure. They're not all the same. Some of them are actual down payment assistance, but some of them aren't. Some of them are like closing costs and other things like that. So programs for little pieces, and they all vary the details. And so basically every time you look at one, it's just this collection of links, because the database itself isn't affiliated with any of these programs or anything like that officially, right? It's really just collecting the information. And so if your clients are interested, they'd have to do the next steps, or, you could work with them for, taking care of those things, of course, too. But it's just pretty
easy.
And then it has a list of the takes them to the list of the lenders too. And then it also has the classes.
That makes it easy.
Right.
To click on it.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. And then the financial tools.
Yeah.
Has that been updated? I know I've been seeing excise tax changes 2023.
Yeah, it gets up. Oh gosh, hasn't been updated for 2023. It used to have a date, but it doesn't, I don't think, at the bottom, because it got like a makeover.
I think I might have stuck
It
you.
does look a little different here.
It does.
I know, it's nice. I like it better.
Yeah.
I don't know. So you did stump me, but I can find out and I'll let you know how often it updates. It used to do it once a month, I think. So if that's still the case, you can expect it to be pretty timely, accurate.
Okay. So yeah, so the excise tax, I think this is financial tools, is right embedded into your MLS matrix. Some of our agents didn't even know it existed.
I know it hides there.
Yeah, but it's
Nice
there.
little calculator.
As long as the excise tax is updated, Roxanne, I think we're
right.
in. So if you could get back to us on that, that would be great.
Totally. I'll double check on that.
The other thing that's been going on the blog is at least on like Washington State on Facebook, I know we've been seeing a lot of people debating the credibility of InfoSparks and FastStats.
Okay.
I've used FastStats and InfoSparks, and
I feel pretty confident about its accuracy. The only thing that happens that I know of is that there is stats here in InfoSparks that you can run, of course, and then there's also like a little bit clunkier, more old-fashioned sort of matrix stats function. Okay. And sometimes if you run the same stat in both of those things, if you don't really kind of know the way that these things are working, it can look a little bit different. Okay. And so it's alarming, right? You're like, wait, this one says this and this one says this. But the reason that happens, at least every time I've actually had a chance to check into it, so by all means, if anyone notices any actual discrepancies, please tell me and tell us. But is that InfoSparks is calculating time slightly differently than matrix stats. Essentially, InfoSparks gets a dump of information at the end of each month. Yeah. Right. So and matrix stats is like up to the minute. And so you could run a stat and it'll say, you know, a number that's a little bit different for closed sales or something like that. Because Matrix might be saying up until, you know, the 16th of December or whatever, but
Yeah.
InfoSparks will really only have until the end of November, until December ends.
Got it. Okay,
Right,
so
that
But
makes
this
sense,
info
though.
is good. I mean,
Because
we're
we've been
keeping an eye
having
on it.
such sudden abrupt changes. I mean, in a month, we've seen
I know.
numbers kind of. go
Yeah,
this
crazy,
way. So
right?
that makes
Yeah,
sense. That makes a lot
so
of
the
sense.
data
Thank
is
you.
coming right from the same source.
Right.
absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
just how maybe somebody on the blog is not knowing how to use InfoSparks and then how to communicate that to their client. That would be.
Yeah. And
this
I
is
don't know what the
for
blog
them?
is, but
Well, and
give
this
them my
is like, I
number.
mean, we're halfway through December.
Yeah.
This is through November.
Right.
And and so we've, you know, obviously we are seeing daily.
And you do training on this,
changes.
Roxanne? I think there's a separate class that they can take, right? on-
Yeah, we've got a statistics class that's like 3 hours, but we also pretty regularly do like 1 hour webinars. Sometimes that's easier to just sort of hop into on the stats. Yeah.
And then it looks like we have questions. Celeste, go ahead and unmute.
So on two things that really frustrate me are when I'm searching for multifamily for a client, there's
Mhm.
no way to search by bedroom count
Oh.
unless I just don't know how to do it.
Would you do
Hmm.
cross property then?
No, you could do multifamily.
So,
But no, I know what you're saying though.
oh yeah, there isn't.
I'm wondering if there's an additional field.
I've tried a bunch of
Yeah,
them.
you might be onto something here.
So the only thing
Celeste.
that I do is I try to do the square footage. What would make sense? Like I have a client right now who's
Right.
particularly looking for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. And so I just search by, I try to weed out any 2 bedrooms or 1 bedrooms by using a larger square footage. But obviously, you know, sometimes you can miss stuff.
Right.
For sure.
Mhm.
And I'm like looking at something right now, sort of while we're talking, but that's a good one. And I'm going to look into that, Celeste, because
So what if you did it in cross property?
But you can't put the bedrooms, remember I learned that today.
Oh, you can't? put the-
yeah, well, I mean, if it's
Well, I mean,
it
she's
could
looking
take it
for
out.
multifamily. She's not looking for land. So would it X out? No.
It'd be worth a shot.
Because this is cross property, it has the bedrooms, and then you could do the subtype, property type multifamily. I wonder if that would work and still not, you know, kind of skip out on anything that you would want to see.
No, but I mean, she makes a good point, Roxanne. If you could get back to us on that, that'd be great.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I will, because I'm looking at it, but I'll need to. And I'm trying to do it right this second, but I think I might need a few minutes.
You said 3 bedrooms,
Yeah.
Mhm. 3.
so 3 bedrooms, okay.
3+.
Washington, and what county are they looking?
Pierce County.
Pierce,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's going to work, but
Well,
try
let's see
it.
what it does.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
I've got multifamily, 3 bedrooms.
And then open one and then go down and see what the bedroom count
Oh,
is.
that's never mind. That's not active.
I
Okay.
think that you might have to add unit information into the additional fields to make it work, but I'll play with it, Celeste,
Tried
and
that. It doesn't, units doesn't
it
work.
doesn't. Shoot.
No, it's so frustrating.
Yeah, no, there's got to be a way, and if there's not, we're gonna make it happen.
Number of
Yes,
So-
please make it
Yeah.
happen, because that drives me nuts. The other thing that drives me nuts is when the system switched. So on the old system, before you guys went to OneHome,
Yeah.
and I had clients and they favored all these 100 properties. And as we go out and view properties or they change their mind, I could always keep their favorites file clean, right? Because
Right.
clients don't go back and unfavorite properties. Well, now that we have OneHome, it does not allow us to access their portal.
Yeah.
And that is really tough.
It is.
because
OneHome has
my
caused quite a
clients-
few little hiccups, I think, with some of the stuff that a lot of us were doing.
Yeah. So, I mean, if they would find a way to fix that, I've called in Northwest MLS, I've called OneHome, and they're like, you know, because they set up their portal, you can't have access to their portal. It's there. And I'm like, well, that really puts me at a deficit as their agent, because it's really difficult for me to keep that folder clean, and I miss the possibles.
Mhm.
Right.
Right.
I
But
do
it's
too.
really,
Yeah.
yeah, it's really hard to keep it clean and know what properties they viewed and which ones they haven't. And then if you have 6 or 7 clients at a time, it's a nightmare.
Right. I will give, there is a way that you can view their portal, but you can't change things in it. So I don't know if that would
Right.
even be helpful.
Right.
And I'm taking notes about what you're saying, because there are some other things that OneHome has sort of thrown a wrench in for some folks that they are actively working on fixing. So that kind of feedback is, please, you know, continue to bring it to me, because you know, they're changing that.
I've already sent in requests to Celeste.
Okay,
So,
good.
Roxanne, we just need to collectively, the users, which is all of us, need to send those types of things into NWMLS. They are constantly working with CoreLogic and some of these other providers to make Northwest MLS better. So the more feedback we can give, the better the product will be.
Yeah, 100%. That's really true. And I'll make sure, or maybe Rochelle can make sure, you guys will have my email address, because I can also like forward those things to the right people. If it feels better to email a person you've quote unquote sort of met, then, you know, speak up at northwestmls.com. You know, that's more generic, although those do get looked at. So
Yeah,
feel free to
more
always reach out
people-
to me too.
More people need to speak up about things like that, that really, I think we need to compete with other pieces of technology that our clients use. And that's something that's very frustrating, Roxanne, where it's like they'd rather use a different app or another
Right.
technology because,
Like the red fence.
yeah.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
mean,
We all knew what she meant, Candace. But for sure. And that's one of the things too, that it's kind of, at least the last couple of years, been driving us. Like, how can we find, and you know, we're not working with the Redfin budget exactly, but you know, for sure, we're trying to provide something that will help. And we're gonna definitely a flux sort of mode right now with that kind of thing too, with Home Snap sort of leaving and
well,
things like that too. So
we got around the home snap. We have a Band-Aid on that, Roxanne.
okay, good. I think that, yeah, a lot of offices have figured it out.
I signed the IDX agreement and
Okay, good.
we're going through that. So
Perfect.
business as usual for all the Best Choice Realty agents.
Sweet.
On Home Snap. And I think that was pretty much it. So there was any other questions real quick, but Roxanne, that was rapid fire.
I have my hand up and I put a comment in the chat. Overall, in a variety of ways, OneHome is not as helpful. It's more kludgy. My clients aren't using it. They're complaining. My repeat clients are saying it doesn't work the way it used to work. They're not using it. They're going to Redfin. That's not helping me to sell homes.
No.
So I
Mary,
will
do you know what it like? Is there a pattern, or like, do you know, is there a specific thing that seems to be making them crazy?
I just know that, you know, I've got a bunch of repeat clients that have bought a lot from me over the years, and the system we had before was easy for them to work with.
Yeah.
And this, you know, from the very start, if they don't happen to opt in on the first email, they just find it not easy to work with.
Yep.
And I know we had something better and now we have something worse. And in a competitive market, none of us can afford to go backwards.
For sure. No, totally. I hear you.
No, I appreciate the feedback. I think what we'll do, Roxanne, is we will send, even if you get 31 emails from all of us.
Yeah,
that'd be
please
very
send
helpful.
them. That's what I'm here for, literally.
So I think if you guys feel the same way as Mary and Celeste and me
Yeah.
and Candace, go ahead and I'll get you Roxanne's email. And so to speak up, maybe if we just flood her email box with 20, 30 after the call and thank her for such a wonderful training.
Yes.
And just
always.
say, if we could fix one thing next year, this is what your wish list would be. And
That would be awesome. You guys definitely do that, please, because I could bring it right to the folks who kind of make some of those decisions.
okay, wonderful. All right, well, we'll let you guys go. Thanks again, Roxanne. Have a happy
Yeah,
holiday.
anytime. I hope you guys have a great new year, and
Thank you,
you know,
Roxanne.
maybe we could talk again.
Okay, we'll do this
Thanks again.